Welcome to the meeting, Selectmen, March 12th, 2024. We're going to start with minutes of the previous meeting.
Move the minutes.
I have a second.
Second.
Moving to second. Any changes, discussions? All in favor? Unanimous. We found out Teresa Sadak is on her way up here. As you know, she has a child care place.
We got her.
And there she is.
Hot Mess Express.
All right. We will not do a sniff test on her. 'Cause a baby grew up on her, so.
Yes.
All right. Next is consider changing the business license ordinance.
Here, Matt, you have a copy of the business license. As I put in a red line to show what we're taking out.
Yeah.
And the original. It is, the basic change is that it's a one-time, it'll now go back to being a one-time license. They get it once. There is no renewal. And we put in the renewal of it to attempt to have a way to collect personal property tax, but the way it was implemented just wasn't practical. We couldn't enforce it. We couldn't do anything with it. So I'm recommending we go back to what we used to have.
Okay. Any questions for her? Has everybody had a chance to read it?
Do you smell something burning? Really?
Yes, I've read it.
You do?
You smell something burning?
Is it just me or does somebody smell something? Like
That's
a-
just a puke
No,
on
I smoke. No, you don't smell that?
No.
you. So, all
Okay,
right, I
smell
need a
me.
motion to accept the changes in the
So
ordinance.
moved.
Moved and seconded. So do we
Just-
need to have a public hearing on this?
The planning board already did.
They
It has
already
been,
did.
it has gone
All right.
through the planning board process.
Okay, so we're just voting on
Or-
accepting the change.
Either they already did or they're going to, but it's a part of the planning board process.
Forward, yeah.
And we will have a public
have-
hearing when you folks look at it for the warrant.
Okay.
But I wanted to make sure this was the direction that you were cool with going in.
All in favor? Unanimous? Ask Alex that back if he's ready for us. All right, consideration of accepting the LTC Accessible Communities Grant. Richard, are you out there? There you are.
Yep, here I am.
Yeah, great job on getting this grant for the town of Raymond and the library.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you explain to us what it's all about?
It's so the American Library Association put out a grant opportunity for increasing accessibility, and what I proposed was building a ramp out front because our accessible entrance just isn't exactly accessible. So I had to do jump through a few more hoops, but we could get it going as early as this summer.
Great. Okay, I need a motion to accept the grant.
Move to accept the grant.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you, Richard. Wonderful job. Appreciate it.
Thank you. See you guys later.
Yeah. All right, have a motion to go into executive session, please.
Motion to go into executive session, code enforcement land use matter with attorney pursuant to 1 MRSA, section 405, 6E.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Okay, we'll be back.
Motion to come out of executive session.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Unanimous. So we had a meeting with our attorney out back, and Alex was there as our CEO, and Bob O'Neill, who's the chair of the planning board. Our advice to you right now is to seek a peer review on the wetlands that are there. Meaning, right now, all we have is the plan from the solar people. But we are suggesting that you seek a peer review from someone like Cumberland County Soil and Water and have them come walk the property and give their opinion on wetlands and runoff. we don't think DEP is going to help you at all. So we're suggesting that to the planning board. Bob O'Neill is aware of it. Their meeting is next week. We suggest you go to that meeting and say to them, we would like a peer review of the wetlands on this project.
It's a complete different opinion of the wetlands, is what it is.
So that's what we are suggesting. We got some legal advice. I know what you folks are here for. It's probably not there yet. So if you get the peer review on the wetlands, we think it can be a significant impact on this project. And what was suggested is Cumberland County Soil and Water. So, happy to hear.
So they can't approve? Hold on, wait. Do we still have the opportunity, since this is a public meeting, to voice our concerns?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just inviting you, to whoever wants to speak.
I
Oh, up
cut
there.
you off at the knees.
Yeah, no.
Sorry.
So,
You gotta go up there, though.
no, whoever wants to speak, go up to the mic.
So, good afternoon, Chair Bruno, members of the Select Board. My name is James Bass. It's nice to see you again. I saw you last February. I'm here on behalf of my client, the Danzings and the Wallaces. And I was, prepped to walk through, why, as the chair mentioned, why a retroactive solar moratorium is something that my client and a lot of these supporters are urgently asking this board. I understand the suggestion and the recommendation from the board to seek this review. It sounded like that would be very persuasive to you. If I can ask a few questions about that, if there is interest on behalf of my clients to explore that, I think there's a real concern that the planning board in the interim may move forward and conditionally approve this project.
We had the chair of the planning board present in the executive session.
So we have a promise that they're not gonna conditionally approve this while we're seeking this?
I can't speak for the planning board,
Well, he's here, he can.
He can speak for himself.
but he can't speak for the board either. He
He's
can
one person.
only speak for himself. But we think you'll be okay.
Well, look at the turnout. Take that to the planning.
The only way to go. We can't.
I'll wait my turn.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't sit here and say, yep, the planning board's
Right.
gonna,
Right.
I
We
can't
can't,
say that, okay? But I think there's a good chance, a very good chance, okay? Like, he's a very good boy, all right? Yeah,
No, I understand, and I appreciate that, and on behalf of my clients, we do appreciate that. I think that, as you just mentioned, the interest and how committed these residents are and how concerned they are about this project. And so I understand, geez, if there was some other objective information that talked about the potential damage to the ecosystem in this area and the impact on residents and the wildlife and the watershed, that would be persuasive to you. In a sense, you can see from looks on their faces, they're all in and they understand that. And the request, I'll keep my comments short to allow others to speak. But the retroactive moratorium, I understand, you likely talked about in executive session, is really critical. Because in the event that the planning board decides, I think this project is the right fit, or this project is the right fit and the developer has followed the rules that were currently in force and we think it's unfair or unwise to change that and move forward. What we have is an informal agreement or promise or hope from the select board that right now we will pause this project to allow that to occur. But there's a concern that the planning board will move forward. And the reason I say that is that when I saw you last month, you directed my client and others to talk to the planning board and share our concerns. we did so. And within 3 days, we produced a draft of suggested ordinance changes in regards to the solar ordinance. And I would say, I understand where the planning board is coming from, but admittedly, that review was perfunctory at best. They read it, they didn't really engage in that text, they didn't engage with the ordinance changes, with our suggestions, nor did they recommend a retroactive moratorium. So if the plan is, in a sense, move forward with this, we'll informally pause while you move forward with this, I don't know if that satisfies a lot of the crowd, because again, there's a concern that once this is conditionally approved, it's there. And that's why a retroactive moratorium is so important, because it just says, this may not be the right project, and this isn't the right project for the reasons that these folks know, and this report will likely demonstrate. But without that, this project is still live. This project can still move forward. Clear cutting can still happen. Solar panels can still be installed. So I won't harp on the request, but just know that it is so important for this group that a retroactive moratorium is put out to the voters. I will say that on Super Tuesday, this group got to the polls and got 260 Raymond voters to sign a card saying, we want a retroactive moratorium. I mean, there is real community concern about this project. And we worked with the Select Board last time and working with the Planning Board. We're back now. You are the last bulwark against this project moving forward. So I won't continue that, but I just implore you to still consider a retroactive moratorium, knowing how important it is to the community and knowing their outcry.
And I can tell you this board is very sympathetic, but we also have obligations to protect the town. So all that is taken into consideration. We don't buy, at least from my perspective, a single engineering review done for a developer who pays for that engineering review is impartial. So that's why we're suggesting you get a second one from an impartial third party, and let's see what they say.
I would say it is something that I'm certainly willing to have that conversation with my client about and see if that's an interest. I would say that we appreciate the dialogue and the feedback from the Select Board. I would point out on behalf of my client, though, that the request back to my client is you should pay more money for someone else to offer a different opinion when they know that the damage that this may inflict, and they also request again that
But the
retroactive
planning
moratorium.
board has the authority to ask for an escrow from the developer to get an impartial third party.
Appreciate that. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the time. Again, if I would still consider that retroactive moratorium because of how important it is for my client.
We understand.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bob Chapin, and I live at 35 Pulpit Rock Road in Raymond, Maine. And I come to this issue from three different aspects. One, I am at least what I consider to be a once removed abutter. In other words, I live across the street from the three primary abutters, the Wallaces, the Danzigs, and Mr. Dave Hall. So I have a vested interest in this. Secondly, I am and have been for the past 12 years the president of Pulpit Rock Road Association, responsible for all of the residents on the road. We have 23 homes, 18 of which are full-time, and 8 of which are directly affected by this project. In other words, their property line and the project line are one and the same. Okay, so there's a lot of concern on our street about this particular project. And lastly, I've been the president of the Thomas Pond Improvement Association, which is the lake association for all of Thomas Pond. And we have, as representing 400 members of this organization. They are shoreline property owners and backlot owners with access to Thomas Pond. And 220 of those live in Casco, and 150 of them live in Raymond. So there's a lot of interest in what this town does. The association has as its charter, besides controlling the pond level and the amount of water outflow that occurs from the lake, it has the preservation of the pristine quality of the water for all who depend on it for drinking water, for washing, for irrigating, for recreation, including all of the critters that live on it, in it, and under it. So it's a big group of folks that care about it, as well as some of the birds that migrate through. To do so, we test regularly for clarity, we test for temperature, we test for dissolved oxygen, and we test for phosphorus. And of those, probably the most odoriferous one from our point of view is the phosphorus, because that is what creates algae blooms that result in the lake. We share those results that we get from each of our testing with all of the members of the organization, the public through our website, and through the various organizations in the lake region that monitor the health of all the lakes. For the past 20 years, our readings have been stable and they've been within acceptable levels. This past year, we have seen an uptick in phosphorus and are now at moderate risk for an algae breakout. We have already seen local short-lived breakouts of gliotrichia, if you know what that is, and cyanobacteria, the blue-green stuff. Fortunately, these appear late in the water season, and they have been very short-lived because they dissipate as soon as the cold weather arrives. But it's an indicator of how fragile this particular lake is. It's not a big lake. It's 533 acres, and it's only less than 25 feet deep. So you see it's more like a puddle than a real lake. Mr. Fowler has assured us that no phosphorus will be deposited on his site for either cleaning agents, for fertilization, or for firefighting. However, some movement of earth due to the leveling of construction that he will have to do, pile driving of anchors to hold these solar units in place, and some movement of earth that will result in some phosphorus, some dust, some runoff into the tributaries that run a short distance into the pond through both surface and subsurface flows, unfortunately is unavoidable. The Protective Natural Resources Report, or the environmental report that Mr. Fowler, as Joe Bruno has said, he engaged to do that, he paid for it. It was purposely limited in scope to the identification and the delineation of natural resources that were affected on his planned site. What that means is that this company that he brought into it would tell them what you have on your site and where it's located. And that helped to define some of the vernal pools that are on the land. And I'm sure any other examination would do much the same, but maybe not quite as accurate. Within the confines of the site plan, that's not the potential impact outside of the basically restricted plan that's there. So the rest of the slope of the land down to the lake was not included in their assessment, and they deliberately kept the scope small. And it doesn't define any of the harmful impacts that it might have on Thomas Pond, despite Thomas Pond being less than 2/10 of a mile from the solar panels. In reference to the town of Raymond's ordinance, and this is particularly 310.5 and .6, the site plan review criteria and standard items, J and E, the performance standards, the document mentions that wooded buffers would be maintained, but it does not mention that that there was recent and extensive logging of timber off of the site and the clearance of wooded areas that has already disturbed existing buffers, or that wooded and vegetated buffers that provide water filtration will also be maintained or enhanced if necessary to protect the quality of water. So at least in our thinking, that plan is woefully deficient on those items. Despite solar-generated power being around for many years, the reality is that this recent push for solar has been a fairly recent phenomenon. Neither we nor any solar company knows what long-term effects and possible hazards there might be, similar to what was found with asbestos or living under high-tension electrical power lines. There have been no longitudinal or long-term studies, in other words, 20 years or more, that we are aware of that we might be able to consult for any guidance on this. The internet itself is rife with experiential studies. In other words, places that have done this and what their experience have been. And they say that on an average solar farm should not be constructed with less than 600 feet to 1.2 miles from any residence. okay? And that's on flat ground with other commercial activities in the area, not residential. Finally, some of the board members, as our attorney has mentioned, both here and at the planning board, may feel that to create a pause for Mr. Fowler and his company when he has, quote, spent so much time and effort on this project is somehow disingenuous or unfair. I can assure you that that is not the case. It's simply a business risk that he has accepted. In an earlier life, I was a corporate vice president of business development for a $5 billion international corporation. We routinely spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in what they call B&P funds, or bid and proposal funds. That is profits of the company that then you reinvest into trying to win a subsequent contract. We did that without knowing whether we would win the contract that we were bidding on or not. Businesses do that every day. Should a retroactive moratorium, particularly one of only 180 days, be imposed, I would expect that the solar company would simply move on to one of their other properties that they have, and they have already leased. Then they can live with the amended ordinance. If they can live with them, then they simply resume building, and nothing is lost. No harm, no foul, so to speak. Lastly, the existing town comprehensive plan and the existing ordinance, not the evolving ones, not the ones that are just now being written or amended, both charge the boards with maintaining the rural nature of the town and to minimize impacts to its beauty. We fail to see how jamming 4,000 plus solar panels within 180 feet of a resident's back door, with all the commotion of construction and the clearing of 7 acres of carbon sequestering treed woodlot, the vernal pools, and the wetlands habitat, plus the risk to water quality, could ever be considered a minimal impact. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
Laurie Wallace, 36 Pulpit Rock Road. Just a comment that we feel like a ping pong ball, and yet again, it's being volleyed. It's not a good feeling for the town that we call home. It's very painful to hear this.
And I understand that, Laurie.
I don't know that you do.
No, I absolutely do. But we also listened to our attorney on the consequences of some actions. So we have to think about that. I think the planning board, if you bring all these people to the planning board next week, they will be very attentive. Well, all I can go on is,
Okay.
you know, what we heard.
Thank you. Just wanted to give you a very brief history of solar in Raymond. On July of 2020, the first solar submission, Blue Wave, the application was put into the planning board in July. In it were very specific things like 150 feet of wetland setback. It was flat forested land. It had minimal wetlands association, and the applicant performed a visual assessment as well as a noise assessment. This is in advance of an ordinance. If you read their application, it's actually readable. I understood it. That stands in stark contrast to the current one. Then a year later, June of 2022, the solar ordinance was accepted into our ordinances. And then a year and a half later, with this application, was the first test of the ordinance. And the planning board and the CEO all agreed that the existing ordinance was flawed. So it doesn't make any sense to any of us that we can move forward using an ordinance that is flawed, that needs more substance to it if we want to maintain the character of our town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob Wallace, 36 Pulpit Rock Road. Before I start, you, Joe, mentioned the town of Raymond. What does the town of Raymond Does the town of Raymond only care about an outside corporation coming in and tearing up their land? Or do you care about the residents? Pretty quick. It's a question. Do
You
you
want an
care about the
answer?
residents, or do
I
you
care
not?
a lot about the town of Raymond, and I care a lot about its residents. I think I've proven that in all the public service I've done
I know
over
you
the
have,
last
but now-
35 years.
Now it's time to step up to the board and say, because did you watch the last planning board meeting? You'd have been disgusted. It was offensive, as was the first time we went there. But okay, that's that. We have been ping-ponged around, and we are residents of Raymond, and you have the chance to shape the town of Raymond. This is you can't ping-pong it back to the planning board, because we've gone to the planning board. We've mentioned at least 10 ordinances that would have stopped this project, but it hasn't. So any thought process that we would have thinking that's going to happen is nil. We don't think it's going to happen. I mean, they're going to rubber stamp that to get it through because it's their buddies. You know, that's the way we feel.
You know, they're a volunteer board, just like we are.
I understand that, Joe.
And you know, and they are also Raymond residents, and they're doing the best they can also. So I don't think we need to say they're going to rubber stamp anything. I think they have concerns also.
I think there are
but
members
they're
that do have
living
concerns.
under what the ordinance tells them right now.
Which
That's why an
ordinance, Joe?
outside third-party review is very important.
The land use ordinance has at least 10 spots to it that would kill this project, and we would have a discussion with Dave Fowler about it. Instead, I'm talking to the owner to see if he's sensible enough to say, maybe this isn't the right spot. Okay, he kills half of the vernal pool, somebody else kills the other half, vernal pool's gone. But we've come back to you so that you can do what the town deserves. We're not against commercial solar, not at all. We like it. We would love it. Like the blue wave. The only thing is the blue wave is big. But it's not a detriment because it's not being seen by anybody. It's not affecting wetlands. It's not they did a visual study of 3 miles. And you can see how far they got. They got as far as their lot. They stopped.
Well, we have
So,
some land
a
on
retroact-
Patricia Avenue that would be a wonderful solar farm.
A retroactive moratorium will only put a pause on the commercial solar project. It won't stop it. But what it does do is it gives the town time to update the land use ordinances so that they can be voted on, and applied to existing ordinances by a town meeting. Isn't that the way it works, I believe? That process may need another moratorium. It might need another 180-day moratorium, which I'm sure that you discussed with your attorney. The reasons that I want to see a pause are because the environment should be considered a higher priority than an outside corporation. The current ordinances do not differentiate between commercial and residential policies adequately. The ordinances are deficient in many ways, and it doesn't protect the environment or the citizens of Raymond, as outlined in the current land use. There's no protections in the ordinance for destruction of environmental areas or possible damage to nearby homes, issues that may not come up for years, you know. So we need new commercial and residential ordinances, and I think the only way that can be done is to have a sit down and actually do the ordinances, not retroactively, a retroactive moratorium, but allow us to work with people and get this done. If you don't give us a moratorium, it's probably not going to get done. Nothing against Mr. O'Neill or his board. It's just back and forth, back and forth. What happens the next time we come? Or are we going to end up in Superior Court? That's the question, I think. And we'd like to see some of these ordinances follow the comprehensive plan, as someone is going to speak about, because right now, nobody's obligated, except in certain ordinances where it references the comprehensive plan. So, that's all, thank you.
Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. I'm not here in any way in the capacity of the comprehensive plan. I'm here as a citizen of the town of Raymond, and I'd say that as far as making decisions, it's not always easy, but generally speaking, most of us learn from our parents to distinguish right from wrong, and the hard decisions are made when you have two goods. And I would guess that a number of people in this room would say that acquiring energy from the sun is preferable to ripping it from the ground. And so, that being said, preserving one's community and living space and personal environment is a good. So, which is the greater good? That's the decision, I guess, that are the hard ones to make. I learned a long time ago that good decisions are generally made through experience, and that generally experience comes from bad decisions. So that being said, I will tell you that at the February meeting of the Planning Board, I was asked by Bob Wallace from Pulpit Rock Road if the 2004 comprehensive plan still existed. And what I informed him was that until the town votes to accept the updated plan, which we're currently working on, that what's in force, despite its age, is basically the comprehensive plan that we're to follow. So I'm going to just read a couple of excerpts from that 2004 plan. Number 1, under goals, policies, and strategies suggestion, I quote, exclude future commercial development along the non-commercially zoned sections of Route 302 corridor. So that's in the 2004 comprehensive plan. I'd hate to try and argue against that, but that's how it works. Another summary was the summary of findings from 2004. Raymond has fallen short in directing growth to the designated growth areas. Most of the growth in recent years has taken place in the town's rural areas. This pattern of scattered development negatively impacts many of the town's resources and natural resources. So with that, I just tell you that it's a hard decision. I'm glad I don't have to make it. But as far as what I can tell you, and I guess I would put my hat on for a second, having, for the current comprehensive plan, having had at least the preliminary survey from the citizens of the town of Raymond that chose to respond, which is not as many as I would have liked, that primarily those ideas of preserving natural resources and limiting growth outside of our designated growth areas is not the direction that they want to see us going. But that's preliminary, and I will just put a plug in on the 19th of this month. There is going to be, at 6 o'clock in the Public Safety Building, the last large public meeting for land use as part of the updated comprehensive plan. And we're encouraging as many people to attend as possible because it's those opinions that are going to influence how the plan is written. And it's supposed to basically cover the next 10 years in Raymond. So I'm hopeful that we'll get a good show in there. I would just say this is, I'm a little bit confused only in the fact that the retroactive part of your argument tends to taint a little bit what I would think would be maybe the more community-directed reason for this request. As I understand it, what the planning board did is the planning board basically reviewed an initial request as far as buffers and setbacks, that sort of thing. And I think they did that. And then I think the game, from what I can understand, changed a little bit after that. So that's a little confusing to me. You can come up. You can come up. So anyway, that's just my take on it, is that I know your hearts are in the right place. I also know that human motivation is usually first self-interest. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Hall from 32 Pulpit Rock Road in Raymond. The change that's proposed in setbacks, they went from this solar farm being able to be constructed 20 feet from a property line was the original. How it sits now, how the ordinance sits now is you could plan a solar farm to start 20 feet from somebody's property line, and that could be happening right now and being proposed right now anywhere around our town.
I think they changed it to 50 feet, though, at the
Oh, and so now it's 50. Okay.
I think.
That's
I'm
what,
not positive.
I'm sorry. And I was going. I was going to go there, and they've changed it now to 50 feet.
Right.
So 50 feet from your property line instead of 20 feet, which may be a very comfortable difference if you're talking about where your neighbor is building their shed or parking their truck. But when we're talking about a 7-acre solar farm, you've got to be kidding me that they're going to put a commercial development in our neighborhood now 70 feet or 50 feet from your property line.
What is it 50?
Well, and that doesn't matter, because 20 feet, 50 feet, it's still not 200 feet or 600 feet.
I'm hearing you. I'm just saying, you said 20 feet. We just want to make it accurate.
The proposed amendment is to increase it to 50.
50,
yeah.
Okay.
But it hasn't been voted on.
That has not been voted on by the town.
And my point is, we're talking about these handful of feet. The difference between 20 feet and 50 feet when you're talking about the placement of a 7-acre solar farm, a commercial, for-profit commercial thing that we've allowed to go on in communities that are meant for housing, for people living there. The difference between 50 feet is not at all reasonable to put that one of your neighbors can decide, I would like to make a good lot of money putting a commercial thing in a residential neighborhood, and I'm going to put it 50 feet from your property line. Not 200 feet, not 600 feet. I think that's how, when this was proposed, I said this at the planning board, I think when this was proposed, everyone thought, we've got a lot of space here in Raymond. There are going to be people who have 20, 30 acres, who don't have a neighbor for quite a long time, quite a big space, and they're going to take a couple acres, maybe it's even the 7 acres, because there isn't a neighbor to be seen for another quarter mile. I don't think anybody believed that this was going to be put in a shoreland zone right next to people's houses. But it seems like the idea of what's going on is you've proposed it and now there's nothing we can do to stop it. Because it's been proposed, because somebody worked on it, there's no way to stop it. There's not even a way to guarantee that next week they're not going to vote it through. I would think that the select board would have the authority to say, because of how many problems have gone on with this issue, because of how much support there is in the community, that I would believe that the select board would have the power to say, for 2 months, we would like the planning board not to vote on this issue, so that the residents and the community can have the chance to do.
Which is why we gave you our advice to ask the planning board for a third-party review, engineering review.
Agreed.
There's a reason for that. So
okay,
that's our advice.
And it,
You know, and the other thing is I put this on the agenda to talk about it some more.
thank you. No, and
You're
we
making it sound like we're not sympathetic to you. We are, but we're trying to go down the proper path to reach where we all want to be.
And so my current suggestion is that the select board make a formal inquiry to the planning board to say, please do not vote on this for 2 months to give the community a chance to do a
The chair of the planning board is hearing everything being said.
And when we left your meeting last time and went to the other planning, they said the nature of our conversation at our last select board meeting when we were talking, you expressed support and did not feel it was your place to do a retroactive moratorium and step on the toes. That was their job to do that. And what they said to us, the characterization of that meeting was they left it for us to do. And I got up and I said, I don't feel like you were correctly representing the select board's nature. They believed it was your job to do it. And instead they just said, we will be passing this, was basically the nature of the conversation from the planning board.
I hope they are open-minded.
And we would like something to go on other than hope and wishes that the right thing is done. And it seems like it should be in your power to be able to say, for 2 months, we'd like this to not be stamped for approval, to give a chance for an outside opinion of the wetlands. That's what I would request from you.
And I think you will get that. If you go to the planning board and ask nicely.
And what would our recourse be if at that meeting they said, no, instead we would like to pass it tonight?
Then you give me a call.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, guys. Jennifer Danzig, 38 Pulpit Rock Road. I just need a minute. This is kind of difficult. Thank you for hearing us out. We really appreciate it, and we know from talking with a lot of people on Super Tuesday and just incidentally that everybody does care about Raymond, and we all want to do the best for it. I think that there's just some frustration that we're taking every step that the government is telling us to take, and we're nowhere further than we were when we started. And it isn't just the people in our community anymore, our small neighborhood community. Again, we have over 260 people that have signed a card that says, I support a retroactive moratorium on commercial solar development in rural residential neighborhoods in Raymond. And what I keep hearing over and over again is nobody is aware of our current solar ordinance. Nobody is aware that this is being proposed where it's being proposed. People are in shock and awe. If they hadn't read the articles in the Windham Eagle, if they hadn't seen the report on Channel 6 the other day, they would have no idea that this was happening in their town. And I guess I want to make reference to some of what some other people were saying, and with respect to what the town stands for and what it says and why we're asking for the moratorium. Again, this is just a pause. This is like a timeout. Like this project is being fast-tracked. It was proposed in September. They had a meeting in October that wasn't open to the public. There was only a meeting open to the public that we were informed about in December. And then, they could be potentially voting on it next week. That's like 6 months from start to finish. And as Bob Chapin talked about from the Thomas Pond Improvement Association, there have been letters from the TPIA, the RWPA, all of asking specific questions. The Wallaces have asked specific questions of the Dave Fowler and his agents and his watershed people specific questions, and we get overarching broad answers. No, this doesn't matter. That's okay. Oh, but we're putting in this fire suppression system. Aren't you so happy about that? Like, no, we didn't ask for that. The town of Raymond forced you to do that. And if it's that extensive, do I now need to be worried about a fire in my backyard that you need this massive suppression system you're so proud of? But let me refer to my statements just so that they're on record. The Town of Raymond's Land Use Code 300-4.4 says the intent of rural residential districts is to allow defined uses while maintaining the basic rural orientation of the community. Our neighborhood is very rural. It's filled with a lot of natural beauty. We've lived there for 26 years. Most people on our street have been there for 30 plus years. They chose to purchase a home in that neighborhood because of the extensive rural nature of the neighborhood. We sit on a granite shelf next to Thomas Pond. We're surrounded by forest land, wetlands, lots of wildlife, and a tributary that flows directly from the proposed solar site down into the lake. Simply put, it's not the right location for a commercial solar farm. Clear-cutting acres of dense hilly forest land close to the shoreline, next to our lakes and ponds, and on top of wetlands shouldn't be where commercial solar is sited. To a non-attorney, non-governmental official, when you read that solar energy is allowed in a neighborhood like ours, which is in rural residential districts, you think it's referring to individual homeowners putting solar panels on their roofs or in their backyard for personal use. And that's what all of these people thought that meant. You don't believe it's saying that 4,000 to 6,000 solar panels for commercial use can be installed there within 20 feet of your property line, or if the new ordinance gets passed, another 50 feet. People move to Raymond to enjoy a certain quality of life. The vision statement for our town's comprehensive plan speaks to this. It says every inhabitant of the town of Raymond deserves and should be afforded privacy, the right to peace and well-being, security, education, and unspoiled environment, and guaranteed democratic freedom, which is the freedom to live freely so long as it does not diminish the quality of life for our neighbors. In closing, I'd like to refer to the public hearing for a bill that the town of Raymond and Senator Nangle have partnered on. Senator Nangle said, "Our local water bodies are crucial to the economy and the environment of our smaller communities. Protecting these resources is essential." Raymond's Assistant Code Enforcement Officer, Chris Hansen, said, and I quote, "People that have a lot of money sometimes create a violation and do so knowing that it's easier to ask for forgiveness." So forgive me when I say, we have been promised not this, not that, not that, not that, but are they willing to pay the fine and break the promise after they get their solar farm? We'll see. Officer Hansen also said that the minute it's passed, this bill is passed, it's going to send a message that the towns and the state are serious about protecting our lakes, rivers, and streams. Bill LD 2101 that I just referenced is meant to give municipalities more authority to help protect our natural resources. If the town of Raymond is serious about protecting our lakes, rivers, and streams, then the Select Board has all the authority that it needs right now to be able to do that. Over 260 Raymond residents are asking you to do that tonight by giving them the opportunity to vote on a 180-day retroactive moratorium in order to press pause on this commercial solar farm project near Thomas Pond so that we all have more time to fully evaluate the proposal, get important questions answered, and revisit the town's current solar ordinance to see if it appropriately represents our citizens' values. I guess the only other thing I would say is that you're saying that we can force them to do something else, but we would need permission from that landowner to be able to hire our own environmental consultant to go walk that land. What if we don't get that permission?
No, I think the planning board asked for a third-party review, and they would have to grant it.
Okay. Thank you. I do appreciate you taking the time. I do want to point out a couple things on the map and just give you this stuff so that you have it for your records, because these are the citizens of Raymond. These are the ones that voted for you to sit there and represent us. And these are the ones that are asking you to act in the moratorium now so that this project doesn't go through just willy-nilly, so that it is paused, so that as a town, the voters, the citizens of the town can decide how we want our town to be and what we want solar to be, because nobody understands the current solar ordinance in rural residential. Everyone thinks that refers to putting solar on your house, not that you're going to get a commercial solar farm next to your house that totally impacts your entire life, your entire neighborhood, and potentially the recreation of the lakes, which is why people move to Raymond. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you say you wanted to point out something on the map? Would you use this
sure.
please while you're speaking? Sure. Thank you.
Sure.
And Mr. Fowler, I do see your hand, and I'll let the chair recognize you in a moment.
So this is Thomas Pond. This is Pulpit Rock Road. These are the houses that all, you can see the property lines here that all abut the project. Here's this project, shoved right up into the corner, next to wetlands, next to vernal pools. We sit on a granite shelf. They start pile driving. Are they releasing radon in the air, in the water? It's so close to our houses. They start pile driving. Does it crack our foundations of our house? They pull out all these 7 acres of woodlands, the root systems, which captures carbon, that's now released. Also, those root systems prevent the flooding. This is sitting on a hill. What this map doesn't show you, because I didn't want to alter it and be seen as altering it, but if you came and you looked at the land, or if you watched Vivian Lee on Channel 6 the other night, you would see that from this land directly through David Hall, and I did send you this video the first time we came here from Alyssa Messer, but this wetland has a tributary that flows downhill past David Hall's house, under Pulpit Rock Road, onto the Messer's land, directly into Thomas Pond. It is a tributary that flows. And if you don't think these last few storms, that thing hasn't been raging, like, you'd be crazy. Now you're going to pull out all this stuff. We're going to have even more runoff. We're going to have even more flowing into the pond, which Raymond Waterways has said is dangerous. Anything that happens to one happens to all. They are all connected. This is the project that we are asking for a pause. So, because if this goes through, there's no turning back the clock. There is no oops. There is a suburb outside of Boston that's dealing with this right now. I forwarded you that link as well the last time we were here, showing the exact situation. Solar farm up on a hill, really close to a neighborhood. The neighborhood is now flooded. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in these people's basements. And the solar farm goes back to the town and is like, oops, sorry. Meanwhile, these homeowners that never had flooding issues at all and aren't in a floodplain, so don't have flood insurance, could be adversely affected, either from flooding or, again, damage to foundations from being so close from their hammering it in. Like, this is too much of an environmentally sensitive area. Like, I can plant trees so I don't see it, right? Like, it's not a matter of not seeing it. It's a matter of what is it going to do to us? What is it going to do to the town? And what is the precedent that we're setting? So pause it. Here's the shoreland zone. You see it. They are right outside the shoreland zone. Here's the shoreland zone. They're pushed right up against it as much as they can possibly be. Here's significant vernal pools. They're allowed 25% within that vernal pool. They shoved as many in there as they can to make this viable. Here's the road that they're going to be doing. They're going to have to blast. Like, you should see this road. It goes like this and like this and like this. It's going to be a nightmare. Not to mention the fact that CMP doesn't even want to hook these up. The reason Blue Wave hasn't moved forward is they don't have a contract with CMP. So they don't want to even break ground until CMP gives them the contract saying that they're going to do it. And yet this one wants to move forward within 6 months, full steam ahead, like, get it done, get it under the wire, under the old ordinance while it's favorable to them. Which, by the way, I'm not casting dispersions. I'm going to state facts. Mr. Fowler wrote the solar ordinance in Casco. There is an article to that effect. Casco had a moratorium on their solar ordinance, and he's a solar guy, and he stepped up to help them write the ordinance. So I don't know that taking the interest of a commercial person over this many of your citizens who are begging you, saying, we didn't know that this was happening. We didn't know that's what our ordinance said. We had no idea, and we certainly don't want that for our town. The only way to pause this and prevent a potential environmental disaster from happening is the retroactive moratorium. And again, it's just pausing it so we can do the research to say, yes, this is good for our town. No, it's not good for our town. And let the voters decide. I keep hearing from people that, like, where were you 2 years ago? Like, democracy doesn't work like that. Just because I wasn't there 2 years ago screaming about this doesn't mean that I don't have a right to bring up concerns now. And I would also say that I voted for the damn thing 2 years ago because I'm for solar. And when I read it, it said rural residential, we're for solar. So am I. Put it on your house. Put it in your backyard. For you. As the homeowner, you have the freedom to do that. I don't think anybody has the freedom to put 7 acres, 4,000, 6,000 in my backyard and say that they're environmentally friendly when they're ripping out 7 acres of trees in the wetlands. It's counterintuitive. Thank you. Here are all the cards for
Thank you.
prove that all of these people are supporting. The original 50 were the ones that went to the planning board. So this is a full list. This is just the list from Super Tuesday.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And this is where the solar farm will be from my back door.
I actually drove up there to take a look.
I did too.
Out of your car?
I did.
Did you go in my backyard?
Thank you.
No, you weren't home.
That's okay.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to get shot, you know? I know how the neighborhood is up there, you know?
I got everybody's permission to do that.
In case we.
No, I did
drove
get out of
up
my
there.
car and I looked out, so. Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Linda Pankowitz. I live at 9 Pulpit Rock Road, and I'm here to speak for the land. We seem to be talking about the obligation to the homeowner, to the developer, to the landowner, and nobody's considering the land. We're in the middle of an environmental crisis right now. We're going to get worse. It's, what, April weather in the middle of March. We've just had the hottest year on record. We've had 3 of the hottest summers coming along in the past 3 years. We need to do something other than what we've always done. And what we've always done is exactly what's being discussed here. And nobody's talking about, well, maybe we need to do something different. And maybe it's going to be a little uncomfortable and not terribly profitable, but maybe we'll save the environment little piece by little piece. And there are dragonflies up there in that wetland, and there are fisher cats, who I'm not very fond of, and there are possums, and there are deer and raccoons, and the occasional porcupine and skunk, and they have a right to their land, just like these people have a right to their homes, and just like David Fowler has a right to his bank account. That's all I have to say, that we have an obligation to the land.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have Mr. Fowler who has his hand raised.
Yep, well, he's a Casco resident.
Yes, so you would have to.
Ask for a motion to allow a non-resident to speak.
So moved. So moved.
All in favor? Okay.
Mr. Fowler, if you'd like to unmute.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thanks for allowing me to speak this evening. Yeah, my name is Dave Fowler. I am the applicant for this project. I am a developer. I'm a very small developer. It's my daughter and I who are in the environmental renewable energy business. It's and to the last point taken, that we take that serious, that we are hopefully, in the big picture, helping save the climate and the earth with these solar projects. So we can all have our own agreement on that, but that's our mission statement. So, and that's where I came into the town of Raymond with this project in good faith, well over a year ago. As indicated, October was when we filed our application, but it took another year before that in which to identify all the environmental resources on that property. And I'll stand by my consultants who did that, and I'm happy. I'm not happy to pay for a third party review, but if that's what this is going to take to ensure that my consultants are doing the right thing, then I'm going to stand up for my consultants. They've been working for me for over 10 years, all here in Maine. They're all local Maine people. They're all good people, and I'm going to do what I need to do to make sure that that's right, because I feel confident that what we are doing there is clearly where we are building this project is on buildable area within that property. And we are avoiding all the vernal pools while we are clearing a vernal pool buffer area, not impacting the vernal pool itself. That is an allowed use regardless of the type of development that is being created. I've spent over 20 years on the Casco Planning Board. I was on the Comprehensive Plan Committee. I was on the Zoning Advisory Committee. So I've spent my time and I understand this process. And again, I came in here in good faith and tried to adhere to the standards that you guys adopted less than 2 years ago. And that's where we are today. And I would be very disappointed if there was a retroactive place taken, because all I can see so far, I haven't seen any facts coming from the neighbors. All I see is not in my backyard.
Mr. Fowler?
That's what it is, yep.
Do you have any of your solar farms in residential neighborhoods?
The one in Wyndham that actually has an approval from the town of Raymond for access to it is. It's in a gravel pit, but the gravel pit's in a residential area. It's completely surrounded by residential. On all four sides are houses.
Is this down Brook Road, down that way?
No, out Pipeline Road.
Pipeline Road? Okay.
Yep. And I'm submitting an application in Casco as well. But I have them in Illinois as well, where I've worked. And I am a small guy. I'm not a billionaire. I don't have money to throw around on these things. So, Bob must have been fortunate that he could just put money at risk whenever he felt like it. I wish I could do that. But that's not what I am. I'm a small-time developer. I've built homes in Raymond. I was the project manager of Cathedral Pines project for David Hancock when that was built, which is where I got my start. But I've built houses on 85. I've worked on Crescent Lake, Panther Pond. I've worked, because I was a builder prior to getting into the renewable energy business. So I'm extremely familiar with a lot of the residents of Raymond. And and I would just be disappointed if it were retroactive was taking place. That's all.
Okay.
Can I ask?
I'll respond to all of the other environmental considerations that were said tonight through the planning board process.
Mr. Fowler, I have a question for you. Knowing that this is in a neighborhood that the neighbors are very upset, and we have 260, I believe, signatures of not putting it in a rural, is there any consideration that maybe this isn't a good place for this?
So we looked. There is some consideration for that. I've also worked on wind farms over my 15-year career in the renewable energy. So I've gotten a lot of not in my backyards, and these things tend to get very excitable and emotional during this time period. But after the thing is built, all that emotion is put to rest, because This thing doesn't make any noise. It's not a bad neighbor. The option here, and we looked at this actually, the other option that I have here is a mobile home. This is zoned for mobile homes. And we did the calculations on what we could do in here, and it would be 14 mobile homes would be allowed on the exact same building footprint as this solar facility, using the environmental resources, the setbacks, and those are allowed within 20 feet of the property line. So my question is, would these people be coming back for a moratorium if I was to go and change this use to a mobile home park?
But is this the property that you lease, or is this the property you own?
No, I lease it from Scott Allen.
So I don't understand the whole mobile home thing then. So you would lease it and put mobile homes on if it's not a solar farm? How does...
I would have to make that arrangement with Scott.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Fowler.
Thank you.
All right,
Just to rebut one
Okay.
thing, he says he's a really small guy, but he did the huge one in Hancock, partnering with a firm down in Boston. And then with respect to the environmental report, I'm not disrespecting the environmental experts that did his report. The problem with their report is it was solely limited to where the proposal of the farm was going and Scott Allen's property. They didn't take into account the wetland or the vernal pool or the tributary on Dave's Hall's property that flows into the Messer's property into the lake. So the fact that they didn't consider that, that's the environmental impact we're most concerned about. Their environmental
which is
report
why
didn't
we
do that.
suggest a neutral third party.
Absolutely.
I think it would
That takes into account the entire,
everything.
all the way
Yes.
to the lake.
Yes. I don't want to. All right. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Bruno and members of the board. I appreciate your time tonight, and I fully understand that. Well, firstly, I want to thank you for being servants for the town of Raymond, sincerely. I appreciate and I understand very well what you're dealing with right now. And before I make just a couple of comments, I also want to send a kudos out to your new town manager, Sue. I wish you the best of luck, Sue. And I hope that being town manager will be as rewarding and satisfying for you as it was for me. My name is Deborah Cabana, and my husband and I just moved to Raymond 4 years ago, and we live down on Twin Pines Road. And I wanted to share with you what my experience has been so far as you move through and think about this moratorium. There was a site walk that we received a notice to that was December 2nd, 2023, and it was at 10:15 a.m. And I brought a copy of the site walk. My neighbors and I, who live on Twin Pines Road, and that is to the left, and that's very close to where the road is going to be built to get access to the solar panels. And anyway, the notice. You're hereby notified the Raymond Planning Board will hold a site walk at the following location. Saturday, December 2nd, 2023 at 10:15 a.m. regarding the information for the following proposed project. It says who the applicant is. It says the location is map 4, lot 68 and 68A. It's zone RP and LRR1, Roosevelt Trail. Description, the site plan for a 996 kilowatt ground mounted solar power generation facility. The site walk will commence at 10:15 a.m. Meeting at the project site, Roosevelt Trail. Public welcome. No, if you have any questions, call this number. No address, just Roosevelt Trail. Well, we had already seen the construction vehicles because I thought there was clearing that was being done across the street from me. I could visibly see all of the construction vehicles in there, removing trees right up to the property line of my neighbor, which I have two neighbors that would have been here tonight, but they're both families are ill and couldn't be here. I thought it was going to be a home that was going in there. So at 10 o'clock in the morning for a 10:15 site walk, We started from Pine, my street, Pine, Twin Pines, and we walked. And we walked the gullies, and we walked the wetland, and we walked towards Pulpit Rock. About 15 or 20 minutes later, there's nobody. We've seen nobody. And I have a loud voice. I used to be a cheerleader, so I can portray here. And I hollered out, nobody. And we continued walking, and we finished at 10:45. 10:30, 10:45. We came out onto Roosevelt Trail, where there's partially a clearing. Nobody was there. We encountered nobody. And so from that, I said, probably somebody got sick, and they had to cancel the site walk. And I just assumed there was no site walk. And so my neighbor went to town hall the next day. Sure enough, there was a site walk, and I think you folks knew where the gathering place was, who lives on Pulpit Rock. I did not. I do not know where map 4, lot 68 and 68A are. I just know where the clearing was. So I was a little frustrated, to say the least, that I wasn't able to participate in the site walk. The last thing, and I'm really happy that you are proposing that there be another review of the whole lot, because as a result of the clearing that we have seen, we are experiencing on Twin Pines Road, which is a private road, which we have to pay to maintain that road. There's a lot of erosion that's coming down from where they were doing the clearing. The trees are no longer there. So it's coming down the hill, across the road, it's digging across my road, and it's landing in the middle of my driveway. My husband was out there today trying to mitigate it and to divert it in different directions. So there is an impact not just on you folks on Pulpit Rock and potentially on the lake, it's coming down to all of us. They're on Twin Pines Road, and eventually it's going to land in the inlet, which I'm on the inlet. Definitely, I know what you're facing when it comes to implementing a moratorium, much less a retroactive one, because we've done it in gray. And that was when marijuana was legalized, and then we were, of course, trying to get all these big decisions where to put it. And we extended the moratorium, and I know what you're facing, and that's why I say sincerely, I appreciate your efforts and the fact that you're even willing to serve here. I guess my final thoughts are, though, as we do these moratoriums and as we transition and we change and we develop, right up on 302, it's a little place called Skunk Circus. I would submit to you that North Wyndham smells like Skunk Circus. And also, when I drive through Gray, I don't live there any longer, but there are sections in Gray that, oh my, I don't think that the council that I served with really thought it was going to end the way that it ended, even with all of their efforts of their moratoriums. And so I guess there's been some really good testimony here tonight. But I think moving slowly forward so that Gray can be what you folks have intended her to be. I've only been here for 4 years. Raymond, yeah, see? That was 35 years.
Yeah, it's going to take a while.
But I do see that your resolution is we pledge and encourage others to be the influence. And that's what you folks are doing from Raymond tonight, is being the influence because they want to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a reminder that we have another meeting, a budget meeting, so.
Sorry, Joe. I wish this was quick and easy.
Take a moratorium.
And I did try to make mine quick and easy, and I tried not to bring up the planning board, even though I did. I know. However, the select board has to know that wait a second. The applicant has stated that he believes it's mostly a NIMBY thing. However, he was at the December 13th planning board meeting, as was Alex, and I brought up at least 10 deficiencies in our planning ordinances for this project that have never, ever been discussed. So that's why I think you're seeing a little apprehensive, or we're being a little apprehensive, because things have been brought up. Some of them have been, oh, slap your face, forget, I'm not going to answer it. I'm just going to say yes or no. I'm not going to give you a detailed description or anything like that. It was nice of Mr. Fowler to increase the buffer area. However, he hasn't stated what's going to be in that buffer area yet. He could put a pile of rocks in there, and that could be his buffer as far as we know. Again, the 10 things that I asked about in the zoning, land use zoning ordinance should be addressed before anything, and thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
We do have Mr. Messer who would like to speak if that's okay.
Well,
Yes.
First?
Walter speak. No, go ahead.
No.
Okay.
I'm just headed to the garbage.
Prolonging, I know, I'm sorry. But thank you. Under 3 minutes and non-confrontational, how's that?
That's wonderful. Thank you.
I feel certain that this developer meets all ordinance obligations, and I know that Walter Lunt, 134 Thomas Pond Terrace. And I know I'm not qualified to counter any of their legal or environmental issues. I do applaud him for increasing the buffer zone. Good move. But as I listened to the last Select Board meeting here, and then later the Planning Board meeting, and to the concerned citizens during both, my mind kept going back to my childhood in Wyndham and the development along Highland Lake. Shoreline development started there in the early 1900s with loose regulations, or possibly no regulations, but while I was growing up, it intensified immensely. And under new shoreland zoning regulations. First, there was development behind the shoreline area, and then concentrically more development surrounding Highland Lake, and it continued up the hilly regions surrounding the lake all the way. And all the while, there were stricter regulations. It became hugely densely settled, and a lot of that development came under the new shoreland zoning laws in the 70s. Now, fast forward to the 2000s, and we had a lake in serious, serious trouble. Algae blooms, low oxygenation, and today those residents surrounding Highland are heavily, heavily invested in bringing back and maintaining their lake. I'm a history guy. History teaches us stuff. I see a similar trend happening here with our pristine lake. I'm one of the other 400 that Bob Chapin referred to. I don't live near the development. I'm here out of concern, serious concern for my lake. And I went to the site. I see the cutting within view of the lake, the disturbances of the wetlands, and any problems there, either during construction or later on, a fire perhaps. All of those problems don't stay with that area. They're carried all the way to Thomas Pond in a stream that runs year-round. Now, the state requires towns to have shoreland restrictions. Good. They're minimum. They do, let's keep in mind, allow the towns to have stricter regulations if there's good reason. Just something to keep in mind. I hear the concerned citizens next to the project, and they're raising some very, very good questions, and I'm thinking it might be time to pause and get some answers to those questions. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. So one of the things you want to do is make sure that whoever this third-party engineering firm may be, Cumberland County Soil and Water maybe, get there as soon as possible when the vernal pools are all there. So somebody may want to make a call on your behalf tomorrow. Just saying. Go ahead.
Mr. Messer?
Yes, good evening. Thanks for allowing us all to speak tonight. And, the first question would be, why not recommend the third-party review last meeting or when this all started a few months ago?
We're working through this process. This is not something that the Select Board normally does. Okay, we don't usually get involved in planning board issues, but we are now. And after speaking to our attorney, it may have been suggested.
And then the next piece would be that obviously this ordinance is woefully incomplete. Having looked at it, it's too vague. I don't think it satisfies the residents of Raymond, nor is the comprehensive plan. And so I think that needs to be reviewed carefully. And you were elected to lead and to take action. And I feel like right now you're sitting on your hands, just kind of waiting and biding your time, when I think a retroactive moratorium would be the action that needs to be taken, so that then we can look at the ordinance, rewrite it, and retroactively make sure that all these developments going forward fulfill the comprehensive plan.
Well,
so
I do appreciate your opinion that we're sitting on our hands, but I guarantee you we're not.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Alyssa Messer, 31 Pulpit Rock Road. Hi, Jeffrey. That's my husband in a different state tonight. Mr. Lunt, thank you for speaking about Highland Lake. We have connections to Highland Lake. Our grandfather grew up there, and I do recall him talking about the lake draining and having to play baseball in part of the lake that completely ruined the lake because of some decisions that were made. And history does teach us lessons. And as parents, we try to teach our children what the right thing to do is and how to live correctly. And last time we were here together, one of my children spoke. Both of them were prepared to speak. The one that did speak is an Eagle Scout that we have several Eagle Scouts on our road. That is extremely passionate about taking care of the environment. And the other one didn't speak, kind of because of a comment that you made tonight. I would like to remind you that we have a meeting after this. We are all residents of this town, and we have a voice to share about things that are important about building this town. And when you made that statement, it made her feel that she didn't have the right and the time to vote. And unfortunately, for the benefit of all of us, you missed some really critical information because she's a brilliant child who loves science and loves information. And I will submit that information to my fellow residents and to you as well, sir, because science has information on what these solar panels give off and what they can happen to lakes. Into our environment, some things that have happened over at Highland Lake, and I will submit that for the record for the town to have as well. Mr. Chapin brought up a lot of really important points that I think that we need to stay focused on when we have information and data points that others don't have and viewpoints and have differences. I think we need to be able to be open to those things. And I think I appreciate the time and effort he put into gathering those things. He is a wealth of information, has been dedicated not only to our association and our road, but our entire lake, and has put countless hours in, of all the years that we've known him, 17 years, into caring for our lake and the dam on our lake. And I really appreciate the comments and data points that he brought tonight. I want to reiterate, I was going to bring up the vision statement of the town that Jen said, but so I won't repeat it. But we need to be focused together as a community as we spend time moving forward on what our vision statement is as a community. Are we working towards that together? You have all these cards that residents have not only come out here tonight, not all residents can come out. I was on the Zoom, it got shut down. I came over here. My husband's out of state. There's a lot of families that can't come here for whatever reason. They signed cards that said they don't agree with what's happening right now. What is the problem with just pausing it and saying, let's get this right from the start? Is it right for Raymond to have a solar farm? It is a great idea. We have that property right up on Patricia Lane. Let's do it for the town. Let's get some resources for the town. Let's find places where it does work. Maybe we can have Mr. Fowler take it over there. Maybe that's the right fit there. Maybe it's not the right fit here. Maybe it's the right fit there. Can we have that conversation instead? There are options that are better than what we're dealing with here. It's not about anti-solar. It's about where is it the right fit and where are we not harming our waterways. I just took pictures yesterday and another set of videos yesterday. The waterways are running so fast that we have foam on my property. You heard them reference us several times. I have foam building up, piles like a bathtub of a kid, running down so fast into Thomas Pond Terrace off that property. 3 sites, one off of Dave Hall's, right over directly on my land, one midway down the street, and one off of at the very end of Pulpit Rock Road, so fast that there's foam building up. And this never happened in the 17 years that I've lived on this property. None of the 3 of those sites have run that fast. So these are issues that I think we need to just take a pause, look at what's happening, make sure we get it right, and I will repeat and ask that you take your jobs that we have appointed you to, we as members of the town have appointed you to, and ask specifically that you give the 180-day retroactive moratorium to make sure that this project and those going forward are done correctly and the way that we need them as a town and the way that we agree as a town that should go forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mine's 1 minute. It sounds like, the property that was a closed dump has been spoken about several times. This isn't really our place. This isn't the time to make that suggestion, but if potentially the select board could have a conversation with Mr. Fowler about trading properties, satisfy the community of Raymond about the current proposal, ask him to move it to the other location, check with the property owner to see if that meets his needs.
Well, the property owner for that location is the town of Raymond.
Sorry, no, for the current, because the idea would be, we would be concerned that we would be cutting out the property owner of the current place who lives on that property, and he probably wouldn't be interested in trading this for a 14-unit trailer park. But he may be amenable to, instead of making all of my community that I live in upset with me for having pushed this into right next to their houses.
Has anyone spoken with Scott Allen?
Yes.
And there's no reaction from him? I mean,
I've asked him if he would consider shutting this down and what it would take to get him out of the lease.
yeah.
I spoke to him and asked him what it would take for him to get out of the lease and to purchase the property. He would not commit to anything. He said that he spoke to Mr. Fowler this morning and they had discussed some things, and maybe Mr. Fowler would be here tonight to talk to us about that, but he is, maybe he doesn't want it public.
Well, I know I wouldn't want to live in a neighborhood where everybody hates me. Yeah.
But that sounds like that's an avenue to pursue that really isn't. I don't know.
I mean, Mr. Fowler is still listening, so maybe he will
it would also save the money on what this would take to push in a quarter-mile road beyond the wetlands. I'm sure there's going to be issues about what it takes to protect the wetlands as you push a road through, as well as the grading and clearing and all of the issues of building a road, an extensive fence system.
Well, I mean, you know, he already has a solar farm pretty close by to that area, so maybe he would.
Potential. He said it was potential.
The one in Wyndham? On Pipeline Road?
No, he already has.
Hasn't been built.
Oh, it hasn't been built yet? Oh, okay.
No, it's just approved.
So there is then the town property.
I'm always
too.
open for discussion.
Okay.
You know
But-
how to find me, Dale.
All right.
I'm sorry, I'm Linda Pankowitz again still. And I just wanted to say something about vernal pools because I don't think you people understand. It's like Thomas Pond is more than just the shore. It's the land all around it. It's everything that happens around it. The same thing happens with a vernal pool. And you can't tell me that, well, I'm protecting the vernal pool and then go 30 feet or 3 feet or 6 feet away from that pool and destroy the trees and the vegetation and expect that the vernal pool is going to be there. It might make it through 1 year. It's going to limp through the second year. And by the third year, you're not going to have a vernal pool. That's just the way it works. You take away the trees, you take away the vernal pool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Has everyone had their say?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Request a vote
On what?
on a moratorium, a retroactive moratorium?
There's no motion on the floor.
I'm making a motion.
No, you.
I love it. I love it.
Citizen Raymond.
Thank you.
Make a motion.
No. No, we are strongly recommending a phone call tomorrow. I hope you hear me.
Yes. Yes.
And
We would want to know.
you are calling a third party to come in and look at the environmental impacts of that area.
And you're going to go to the planning board meeting.
And go to the planning board meeting and request a review by a third party. So you're not accepting the developer's plans. Because as he says, he uses these people all over the
Peter,
place.
he's not on there.
So,
I would also recommend that this amount of people show up for the planning board meeting, because I was at the last one as well, and this one is twice as packed as the planning board meeting was. I know it's tough to go that many times. Yeah, I know. So
Peter.
that would help as well.
real quick, Peter. All right.
Oh, that's it. Go ahead.
Did I hear David Fowler say he was offering to pay for the third-party review?
He has to. If the
Oh, he has
planning
to,
board asks for it. And he did offer.
He said he wasn't happy about it, but he
He
said
wasn't happy, but he would do it. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you guys all for coming out.
In the interest of
meant to give you these two, just in case it's hard to file these.
All right.
These are Xerox copies of those.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
In the interest of moving towards
to the
next meeting, I'll move to table items 5B through 8B.
I second.
All in favor?
Which one?
Did you hear that, Sue?
The rest of the meeting?
We're tabling the rest of the agenda,
Thank you, Derek.
okay?
Yep.
The rest of the agenda's been tabled.
Did you vote it? Did you vote?
Yes, unanimous.
Okay.
Take a motion and take a break or whatever.
So it was a motion by Rolf, seconded by Teresa.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? We're adjourned.